When my jealous sister accused me of stealing from our parents, she ruined my future, so I crashed her perfect wedding and made her confess in front of everyone she loved. Before starting the story, where in the world are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear. Let's just say, no one saw that ending coming. I still remember the exact moment my world tilted. My sister Amber stormed into the living room holding Mom's emerald necklace, Grandma's heirloom. "It was in your drawer," she hissed. My heart stopped. I'd never even touched that necklace. I laughed nervously, thinking it was a prank. But my parents didn't laugh. My dad's brows furrowed. My mom's eyes filled with something I hadn't seen before, doubt. "Why was it in your room, Zoe?" she asked quietly, like a stranger. I tried to speak, but Amber cut me off. She needed money, remember? She was behind on her rent. My mouth dropped open. How did she even know that? And why was she saying it like it was true? I was frozen, waiting for someone to defend me. But all I got was silence. It didn't matter that I'd never stolen anything in my life. In that moment, Amber wasn't just my sister. She was the puppet master pulling every string, and I had just become her scapegoat. I'd always been the quiet achiever. Good grades, 2 part-time jobs, always respectful. Amber was the golden child, beautiful, loud, and always in the spotlight. But she also had a way of twisting the truth to her advantage. That day, her lies dripped with sugar, and my parents swallowed every word. "We're not angry," Mom said, but her eyes had lost all warmth. Dad wouldn't even look at me. "Just admit it, Zoe. We can work through this." Admit it? What was I supposed to admit? I begged them to listen, but every sentence I said made me look more guilty. The worst part. Amber just stood behind them, smirking ever so slightly. She was watching her masterpiece unfold, my downfall. In that moment, I realized the truth didn't matter anymore. What mattered was what they believed. And they had already chosen her. That necklace had been missing for weeks. Everyone thought it was just misplaced. Until Amber found it, in my drawer tucked under my socks. I kept replaying it in my mind. How did it get there? I locked my door every time I left. Then it hit me. Amber knew where the spare key was hidden. She had access. She had motive. And apparently she had no conscience. But even knowing all that, I couldn't prove a thing. She'd planted it so perfectly. My parents were too embarrassed to involve the police, so it never became a legal case. But inside the family, I was already convicted. "You need to move out for a while," Dad finally said, looking at the floor. "Until we can all cool down." That was the moment I realized. I hadn't just lost their trust. I had lost my home. Amber hugged me before I left. "Can you believe that?" She pulled me close, whispered in my ear, "I'm sorry it had to be you." Her voice was so sweet it made my skin crawl. Then she actually cried in front of Mom. "I hate seeing her like this," she sobbed. "But she needs help." Help. I wanted to scream. She was rewriting the entire narrative, and everyone was handing her the pen. As I dragged my suitcase down the steps, I heard Mom say, "You've always been the stronger sister, Amber." I couldn't breathe. Every lie she told painted her as the victim and me as the disappointment. I felt like a ghost in my own family story. But I didn't cry, not then. I swallowed the pain, the anger, the betrayal. Because somewhere deep inside, a part of me whispered, "This isn't over." The worst part wasn't just being kicked out. It was the silence that followed. No text, no calls, not even a message from my own mother on my birthday. I stayed on a friend's couch for 2 weeks before I found a dingy little room above a bakery. The smell of sugar and burnt bread became my new reality. I scrubbed floors, washed dishes, picked up night shifts. I had nothing, but I was free. Free from her lies. Free from the constant comparison. Free to rebuild quietly. And I did. But every time I scrolled past Amber's perfect selfies or saw my mom posting family dinners I was no longer invited to, the ache returned. I wasn't just angry, I was erased. But something kept me going. A little ember in my chest. One day I promised myself they would all see what she did. Not because I'd beg them to believe me, but because she would confess it herself. I thought being kicked out would break me. But what really shattered me was how easily they let me go. My parents stood in the doorway like I was some stray they'd fed too long. "We'll talk soon," Dad said, not meeting my eyes. He didn't even hug me. Amber watched from the hallway, arms folded, smugness masked by faux concern. I had one suitcase and nowhere to go. As I walked to the bus stop, rain soaked through my shoes. The cold bit into my skin, but the numbness inside me was worse. That night, curled up on a friend's couch, I stared at the ceiling thinking about how fast your whole world can flip. One moment I was part of a family. The next, I was a stain they were trying to scrub out. But something inside me hardened. She had taken everything from me, but not forever. I got a job at a late-night diner wiping counters and taking orders from drunk customers. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid rent. Slowly, I rebuilt piece by piece. Got a second job as a receptionist, saved enough to rent my own studio apartment. No more couches. No more pity. I didn't talk about Amber. I didn't talk about my parents. I buried that pain deep like a body. But healing isn't forgetting. I followed their lives from a distance. My mom's post. Amber's engagement photos. Yes, engagement. To Daniel Roth, the son of some investment giant. The ring was massive. The caption said, "Found my forever." I stared at it, wondering if Daniel knew who he was marrying. I bet he thought she was perfect. Everyone did. But behind that smile was a woman who destroyed her own sister for attention. That's when a new idea planted itself in my mind. I didn't want to ruin her. I wanted her to ruin herself, in public. Amber's wedding planning took over social media. Dress fittings, floral arrangements, cake tastings, it was all there. Everyone was drooling over the details. "Can't wait for the big day. You're glowing." But to me, she wasn't glowing. She was gloating, flaunting a life built on lies. My friends would tag me in her photos sometimes. "Isn't this your sister?" I never replied. I had become a ghost in their version of reality. But one photo changed everything. It was her bridal shower. She was laughing, holding up gifts, and wearing the necklace. My grandmother's emerald necklace. The same one she claimed I stole. My blood ran cold. She wasn't even hiding it. That necklace had been missing for a year. Suddenly, it was dangling from her neck in plain sight. That was my proof. That was the crack in her perfect glass world. I screenshotted the photo. My hands were trembling. I knew now. The stage for her downfall was already being built. I just had to walk onto it. Daniel Roth came from a family that practically printed money. He was quiet, polished, and probably thought he was marrying a trophy wife. Amber fit the part. But she didn't just want luxury, she wanted legacy. She wanted to be the woman everyone envied, even if it meant trampling over me to get there. I did some digging. Found out the wedding would be at a fancy vineyard just outside the city. It was invite only, of course, with a list that looked like a Forbes article. But where there's a guest list, there's also a catering crew. I knew someone who worked with a temp agency that staffed high-end events. It wasn't hard to get myself assigned as a server. I didn't tell my friend who the bride was. I just smiled, accepted the uniform, and circled the date. This time, I wouldn't show up as the sister she cast out. I'd show up as the reckoning she never saw coming. The day of the wedding rehearsal, photos flooded my feed. There she was again, standing under strings of golden lights, wine glass in hand, laughing with Daniel. And there it was, that emerald necklace. She wore it proudly like a crown. I zoomed in on every picture. No one questioned it. Not my mom, not my dad, who, by the way, smiled like they hadn't thrown me out like garbage. That necklace was my smoking gun. But screenshots weren't enough. I needed them to hear the truth from her mouth. That meant I needed leverage. So I waited until the big day. My hands steady. My plan simple. The wedding would go off without a hitch. Until it didn't. Because I wasn't just crashing the party. I was flipping the script. And this time, everyone would see the real Amber. I knew I had one shot at this. And it had to be clean. No screaming. No drama. Just facts, delivered so publicly that no one could ignore them. I spent days gathering receipts. Literally. Photos, texts, old group messages. I remembered once Amber accidentally messaged me instead of a friend, asking if our mom ever checked her jewelry drawer. That screenshot had sat buried in my phone for over a year. Now it was gold. I even had a voice note from her drunk at a party joking. Zoe always acts like she's so honest. Bet I could plant a body and they'd still think she did it. At the time it hurt. Now, it was Exhibit B. With a flash drive and a backup on my phone, I was ready. All I needed was a way to speak. Uninterrupted. And at a wedding reception filled with open bars and open ears, I knew exactly how to make it happen. I wasn't just going to confront her. I was going to let her confess herself. The morning of the wedding, I put on my borrowed black server uniform and pinned my hair tight. The vineyard was glowing. Fairy lights, champagne towers, and designer gowns everywhere. Amber had spared no expense. I walked past guests who didn't recognize me. Why would they? To them I was just part of the help. But inside, I was a storm wrapped in silk and silence. I rehearsed my plan again. Serve champagne, keep quiet, wait for the toast. I knew Amber would make a speech. She couldn't resist the spotlight. That would be my cue. I wasn't going to scream or accuse. I was going to ask a question. Just one. In front of her new in-laws, her guests, and the parents who once threw me away. The same way she framed me without raising her voice. I would expose her with just mine. And when that moment came, it would be like striking a match in a room full of gasoline. The sun set over the vineyard, casting everything in golden light. I moved like a shadow between guests, holding a tray of champagne flutes. My heart pounded like war drums, but my face. I spotted my parents first. Mom wore pearls, Dad looked proud. For a second I almost backed out. But then I saw Amber. Her dress shimmered like glass, her smile even more fake than I remembered. And around her neck there it was. The necklace. My grandmother's emerald, stolen, worn like a trophy. That sight burned away every doubt. When the music quieted and guests began gathering near the dance floor for speeches, I slipped toward the mic stand. The best man finished his toast. Amber stepped up next. All eyes on her, cameras flashing. She tapped the mic, cleared her throat. "Thank you all for being here," she began. I held my breath. This was it. The trap was set. All she had to do was speak. As Amber spoke about love, truth, and family, I stepped up beside the stage, tray still in hand. Most guests didn't even notice. She was the star. But my eyes were locked on hers. I waited until she reached the end of her speech. "And I just want to say," she started. I walked up and gently took the mic. Gasps. The music stopped. Amber's smile froze. "Sorry to interrupt," I said, "but I have a quick question for the bride." A hush fell over the room. "That necklace you're wearing?" I asked, pointing gently. "Isn't that the one you said I stole?" Her mouth opened but no sound came out. "Funny," I continued, pulling up a photo on the screen behind me, thanks to a tech who owed me a favor. It showed the date-stamped picture from her bridal shower. "Because here's you wearing it months before it was found in my drawer." The room went still. I watched her unravel in real time. My sister caught in the web she spun. For a moment, Amber stood frozen, lip trembling, eyes darting like a cornered animal. "Zoe, what are you doing?" Mom whispered, stepping forward. But I didn't flinch. "I'm telling the truth," I said. "Something this family hasn't heard in a long time." I turned to the crowd. "Last year, Amber framed me for theft. My parents threw me out. I lost everything. Meanwhile, she built this life on a lie." Gasps and murmurs filled the room. I wasn't crying. I wasn't shouting. I was surgical, just like she had been. I pulled out the flash drive. "This has screenshots, texts, even voice recordings. I'm not here to ruin your day, Amber. Just to take back mine." Her fiancé looked stunned. Her father-in-law whispered something into his phone. Amber finally broke. "Okay. Fine," she shouted. "I did it, all right. I planted the necklace. I was sick of always being second." And just like that, the room exploded. The confession hit like a thunderclap. Amber's voice echoed. "I did it, all right. I planted the necklace." The crowd stood frozen, half in disbelief, half in awe. Someone dropped a wine glass. Mom covered her mouth. Dad looked like he'd just aged 10 years. But I wasn't done. I nodded toward the screen as more photos appeared. Screenshots of our texts, the voice note where she joked about framing me. "This is who she really is," I said quietly. "You didn't just let her lie. You helped her do it." I turned toward my parents. Their faces were pale, unreadable. "You believed a story that never made sense. And you left me alone." No one spoke. Not even Amber. Her mask had cracked, and beneath it was nothing but panic and shame. The queen of the hour was suddenly the villain. And she knew it. Whispers spread like wildfire. The Roth family looked mortified. Guests pulled out their phones. Daniel stepped away from Amber like she was contagious. "You lied to me," he said, stunned. "For a year." She reached for him, but he backed away. My mom tried to speak. "Zoe, we didn't know." I shook my head. "You didn't want to know." I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just stood there, finally heard. The silence grew loud. People began to leave. Some looked at me with pity. Some with respect. Amber was left alone on the stage. Her perfect day unraveling thread by thread. And me. I walked away, slow, steady, dignified. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't the girl they threw out. I was the woman who made the truth louder than any lie. They say karma works slow. But sometimes it wears heels and walks in with a mic. Amber didn't chase me. She sank to the floor, surrounded by silence and ruined roses. Her makeup ran. Her perfect smile was gone. Mom knelt beside her, but even she looked unsure. There was no applause, no bouquet toss, just judgment, and the sound of a life crumbling. I didn't feel joy watching her break. What I felt was something deeper. Closure. She had taken my voice, my home, my place in the family. But I'd taken it all back without sinking to her level. She wanted to destroy me to feel big. Instead, her wedding became a monument to her lies. That's what poetic justice looks like. It wears white, cries guilt, and ends with no I do. Took them a week to call. My mom cried the whole time. My dad apologized, stammering, ashamed, broken. We failed you, he said. And for once, he didn't try to explain it away. They offered to make it up to me. But I didn't want money or gifts. I wanted them to feel what I felt. I let the silence do the talking. I didn't forgive them, not yet. But I let them know I'd moved on. I'd built a life without their help. And they would have to live with the fact that they pushed away the daughter who told the truth. Amber moved out of the spotlight. Her engagement shattered. No more curated perfection, no more crocodile tears. Just consequences. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming myself, and I had. I didn't get a trophy for surviving. I didn't get my family back. But I got my name cleared, and that was enough. These days I don't follow Amber. I don't ask about her. I live in a small apartment filled with light, books, and peace. I smile more. Trust slower. But I never forgot the day I stood up for myself. Not with violence. Not with venom. But with the kind of truth that burns cleaner than any lie. If you've ever been betrayed by someone who should have loved you, know this. Their lies will rot. Your truth will root. And one day, it will bloom into power. Just like mine did. Have you ever been blamed for something you didn't do? Comment below. I read every single.